Hello everyone, welcome to our Spring Boot series. One of the great things about Spring Boot is the premise that it should be possible to develop code and only the code that is necessary for the application. All the other things should be somehow configurations outside the application, and if they are inside, they shouldn't be too much intrusive on the code. That's why you see a lot of annotations and property files on Spring Boot, which is a big advantage from the point of view of the code, but sometimes it can be difficult to understand all the configurations because it requires a great documentation. Today I would like to introduce you four different configurations that can make a big difference when we are developing code or maybe testing code. The first one that I want to approach is the server port. Most of the servers that we use local on our machine, they use the port 88 or sometimes 8000, okay? And sometimes you need to change. And Spring Boot makes that change very easy to be done. By default, the port is 8080, like this one, but we can change. Let's start first what we have now for our application, meaning that if we use this port 8080 for the users, we call them, and okay, we can see that it's returning the users, but maybe we don't want this one and you want to change to something like 90 to avoid any conflicts with other servers that we already have executing on our machine. So when we do this, probably this kind of configurations, they don't enter on our dev tools. In a previous video, I introduced the dev tools, which are, let's say, the POM. I think they are somewhere here. Boot Starter Web, Boot Starter, GDBC, Boot Starter Test, dev tools. But I believe sometimes this configuration, they are not applied by the dev tools. So if I refresh here, okay, it applied. So it's not working anymore. It seems that was a, let's say, a refresh. When you install DevTools, as I explained in a previous video, you don't have to stop and start the server for most of the features. Sometimes you have to. If, for instance, you are changing security things that are very structural on the application, you have to stop and start the server. But most of the times there are just small configurations or even new classes or change a bit of code. Spring Boot understands what changed, recompiles it, deploys it, and you don't need to stop and start the server. So in our case, we change our configuration to 9000. And when I tried this one, it was not working anymore. So I will change to 9000. And now it's working, and we can see even after the call that the dispatcher service received the request. So this is one way to do it. Another thing is the root. Maybe we are developing more than one Spring Boot application on our machine, and to avoid conflicts, of course, you can always use the port for that. But another way is to use the context path. Context path is the name that we are giving to our project. In our case, we are not giving any name from the address point of view, because you just have localhost, the port, and this is the REST API. It's not application. Maybe if you are building a finances application like this, we want to be possible to write something like this, and maybe later we can even do something like this, okay, when we're using the API. But that's for another lesson about the APIs. So what should we do to write here finances? The way we can write it like this. We have this property, server-servlet context path, okay, because behind the scenes, almost everything in Java that is related with web, it is a servlet. That's why most of the times it's not server context path, it's the servlet, not the server. It's the servlet in this server that uses finance as the context path. Okay, that's the correct way to read it. So I will change to this finance. I don't know if it will refresh or not. Let's say few. Okay, it refreshed. You saw it after a few seconds. So it should be working now. If I remove the finance, it's not working, not found, because it doesn't exist anymore. But now if I write here finances, okay, you can see that now my application is here. So if you are developing, let's say, a solution with microservice and you have 3 or 4 different Spring Boot applications on your machine, this is one way to make sure that you don't find any collision between ports and names of the application or even APIs. Okay, another thing that it's nice, it's sometimes people don't like for this to be displayed, okay, which is called the banner mode. And usually you have console, you have log, and you have off. And sometimes people like this. I saw it in enterprise projects. People don't want to display this, they want to display as minimal information as possible, and so they remove the banner mode like this. So let's see, I don't know if it refreshed or not. Okay, let's see. Okay, but here we have to, of course, to stop and start. Okay, let's clear this, clear all, and let's start again the application, run. Okay, and you can see there's no banner anymore. Okay, it's just port 9000 as we configured, and that's it. There is no banner anymore. Another thing that can be useful when there are problems, it's the logging detail. Okay, the logging will be the subject of one or more videos in our Spring Boot series, but by default, you can start to configure your org Spring framework logging level. Okay, and by default it's info, and it's the usual things that you see on the output, and it should be enough. But if you have to, when you start to add beans and other configurations to your Spring Boot application, sometimes something is failing and you don't understand what, because Spring, it's a lot about configurations behind the scenes, and sometimes they throw very strange errors and you need more detail about them. And in that case, you can open more this gate, which is not a good idea most of the times, but sometimes it is necessary. So I move to debug. I'll stop and start. I'll just push this up, and you see that's a lot more. And this is one of the reasons that people don't like the debug in Spring, but you have more information about what's happening behind the scenes, every bean that is being instantiated. Maybe it's too soon to explain everything that you see here, but later it will be useful sometimes to change to debug mode, like this here. There is even one that is more verbose than this one, which is trace. But yeah, don't go there. It will be even more lines than the ones that we are seeing. But you can see everything that is being done behind the scenes. Everything that's auto-wiring the beans, created instance, patterns is looking for registering place where it tries to find files. If you take a time to read this and start to read about Spring Boot, you will see that it makes sense, everything that it's here, and it can help you in some scenarios. But for me, usually by default, info, it's enough. Let's keep the info here for now, and if in some video we start to have issues, and I think issues are relevant to be discussed, I will change to debug or even lower like trace. These are the 4 options that I wanted for you to learn today. They are quite simple ones, but can make a really difference. If you are working with more than one application, you need to troubleshoot, or you are in let's say, you need to do a demonstration and you don't want to show about the banner mode, about Spring Boot. Maybe you want to just explicitly say, okay, these are the tasks that for the start of my application, it's not important to let's say marketing the Spring Boot. You can always also use the banner mode. I don't know how much properties Spring Boot contains. I heard that it's more than 1,000, but usually I would say that a common developer should understand around 100 probably. It seems too many, but it's not. Here you already have this 4, plus 4 for the database, 8, 10, and 14, and this one 15. So we are at the start, and we already understand about 15 different properties, and they all make sense. You don't have to remind them all at once, because they are very contextual, and I will explain that at the right time. But usually you can see from the first part what are their purpose. If you are looking for something related with data source, it will always be Spring data source. When it's something that is related with a specific technology, you will see something like Spring and the technology here. This is more generic SQL. This is H2 technology. This is more data source. This is more broad. It's not Spring. It's logging. Logging. It's not a thing from Spring. Spring use logging, not logging use Spring. Okay. This is main because it's the main property of the Spring. It's at the start. This is web context from the servlet, meaning it's related with something about the requests to the applications. It's about servlets. And again, when it's completely server, this is the port because it's directly related with the server. It's not the context. Remember that the finances, it's after the port. It's not the port inside the finance, but it's the finance under the port. You can have different applications, different context paths on the same port. Okay, and beside that, you can have multiple ports with multiple context paths, so you have a great range of possibilities to have multiple applications on your machine. Okay, these again were the 4 properties that I want to show you, and I hope they will be useful for you in the future. So please subscribe my channel, support me, try to comment, give ideas. I will keep deploying some of these videos so I can share with you the knowledge, and maybe I can improve your enterprise life a little bit more.